"Where are you right now?" I asked, angered by Gordon's absence on Angelia's big day. I called him, reaching the end of my patience. Then he said something about being on a trip to Australia with Mom and Dad on Angelia's ceremony day. "Are you out of your mind? I can't believe this. Don't get mad just because you weren't invited on the family trip." Gordon, a mama's boy whose favorite saying is "Mom comes first," forgot about Angelia's ceremony event and took off to Australia with the money saved for Angelia's future. Well, if that's your attitude, I have my own plans. Saying this, I hung up the phone and took a certain action. Days later, after Gordon returned home, he bombarded me with a persistent 30 calls. Reluctantly answering, I heard, Hey, the house is gone." Gordon was in such a panic I could tell even over the phone. I told you, didn't I? I have my own plans. My name is Iola. I'm currently 34 and work at a travel agency creating brochures. I met my husband, Gordon, through an acquaintance and got married 12 years ago. But this marriage had its issues even before it started. Gordon's dad is the vice president of a major pharmaceutical company and is said to be the next president. A man from a distinguished family, Gordon, 5 years my senior, graduated from a prestigious university and works at the pharmaceutical company where his dad is employed. He holds a position that is recognized as elite by everyone, including himself. On the other hand, I'm just an ordinary person. I didn't graduate from a renowned university or work for a top-tier company. I don't know why Gordon fell in love with me, but perhaps he chose me for my inner qualities rather than family background. Amazing that someone so distinguished likes me. I honestly felt elated at the time. However, a person appeared who crushed my blissful feelings. Gordon's mother, Anissa. Anissa's affection for Gordon was excessively doting, almost abnormal. Even when I visited for the marriage introduction, Anissa's attitude was overly clear. "Ah, nice to meet you. I'm Iola. I'm here today for our formal family meeting. Thank you for taking the time." Coming from a distinguished family, I had searched a lot before this day for mother-in-law approved attire, fail-safe gifts, and the right words for the family meeting. My voice was a bit shaky due to nervousness, but I thought I managed to speak my first words without any problems. However, Anissa was not so lenient. "So, you're a girl from an ordinary family?" she said. I thought Gordon, who said he didn't care about family backgrounds, would bring home a beauty that defied expectations, but even your face is ordinary. She scrutinized me with a frown. An ordinary family? An ordinary face? Before I could feel shocked, irritation took over. Father-in-law Chester, who heard this, was completely indifferent. He just sat there like part of the background. Even Gordon, who should have stood up for me, didn't defend me. Instead, he just smiled at Anissa and said, "Anyway, hurry up and serve Mom's cooking. That's what I came for today." Carefree Anissa seemed pleased with Gordon's remark, and her mood improved instantly. Yes, Gordon really loves Mom's cooking," she said, almost skipping to the kitchen to start cooking. The situation calmed down a bit after Anissa went to the kitchen. Even after the family meeting, Anissa kept contacting me, saying I wasn't suitable for Gordon and strongly opposing our relationship. While I was worried about what to do, I discovered I was pregnant. "Gordon, it seems I'm pregnant," I said, feeling a bit guilty because we were opposed by the parents-in-law. I nervously broke the news to Gordon. "Awesome, I'm so happy. Am I going to be a dad?" Thank you, Iola," he said, overjoyed, contrasting my anxious feelings. As tears welled up in my eyes, Gordon embraced my shoulders. "Let's definitely be happy together," he assured me. I was overjoyed when we reported the pregnancy to the parents-in-law. Getting pregnant before marriage? What a scandal. It would be if the neighbors found out. "Get married quickly and make sure to have the baby," Anissa said. They reacted like that, changing their attitudes so suddenly. It was almost laughable. It was clear they didn't really care about me, just about appearances. And Gordon, nevertheless, with Anissa's approval, we managed to get married. We hurriedly arranged the marriage so that it wouldn't be known that I was pregnant before the wedding, just as Anissa wished. A few months later, a healthy baby girl was born. We named our lovely daughter Angelia. I believed that a happy future awaited us. While I was hospitalized after the birth, a smiling Anissa came to visit. "I wonder if it's a cute boy like Gordon," she said as she approached the baby. But the moment she realized it was a girl, I heard her click her tongue. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but after the tongue click, Anissa said something unbelievable. What? It's a girl? If I had known it was a girl, I wouldn't have said to have the baby. Excuse me, if it's not a boy, the elite family's genes will be lost. We need a child to carry on our genes. What was the point of letting you marry into our family? She complained. Finally, she said, It's a waste to spend money on a girl. I'm going home today. With that, she picked up the fruit basket she had brought for the visit and hurried out of the room. That foolish mother-in-law. The pain of just having given birth was momentarily forgotten in my indignation. After Anissa left, Gordon came, and I told him what Anissa had said. However, my kind mom wouldn't say something like that, he said, laughing it off. It's true. Well, I can see where Mom is coming from. We are an elite family. We can't stop this lineage, right? Let's try for a boy next time. Even Gordon started saying such things. It doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl. This is so outdated, I thought. But I didn't have the courage to talk back. I resolved to avoid the in-laws as much as possible and looked forward to being discharged. 12 years have passed, and Angelia is now 12 years old. Anissa still glares at me every time we meet and seems to dislike me. Her attitude towards Angelia is also terrible. Andrea. Anissa calls her by the wrong name. It's Angelia. When will you ever remember my name, Grandma? It's terrible. Well, such a bold attitude. Whose detestable personality did she inherit, I wonder? She frowned at me. Me? That's why I didn't want to be involved, I thought, but kept quiet. As for Chester, he's still as indifferent as ever. Even after 12 years, he's like part of the background. He doesn't speak or engage in any topic. Because of this, Angelia has no attachment to the in-laws. I've reported several times to Gordon that Anissa harasses me, but his response is always dismissed. Really, that's how it is, huh? He shows no intention of making any improvements. Gordon is a complete mama's boy. When I cook, he says things like, Mom's cooking is the best. Or when I do laundry, Mom would fold it more neatly. His mantra is, Mom comes first. I was getting fed up and kept my distance from my in-laws. However, when I occasionally visited the in-laws' house during events like Christmas, they would rush me. When are you having a boy? Hurry up and give us a child to carry on the genes. I couldn't just choose the gender or have a baby at will, so I brushed off their comments. Kelly's wife had a boy. She's competent, unlike Iola. Hearing the same thing over and over was exhausting. Gordon, perhaps brainwashed by Anissa, kept saying, if only Angelia were a boy. And he recently started saying, even you're saying that it's fine to have a girl, but Mom says, I was tired of these days, but for Angelia's sake, I wasn't ready to consider divorce. Whenever I said something to Gordon, he threatened, I'll tell Mom. And true to his word, Anissa would call. You're bullying Gordon, how dare you? You, as his wife, she began yelling. She was like a monster parent. I'm not bullying anyone. It's time to let go of your son. I blurted out my inner thoughts. What did you say? I realized I had spoken my mind, but I didn't care anymore. What Anissa is doing is harassment. She's a monster parent. Please stop calling for every little thing. This strict wife, if you bully Gordon again, I won't forgive you. Annoyed by her loud complaints, I hung up. It felt like Anissa and I were in a state of war. One night, Gordon approached me with something he wanted to discuss. What do you want to talk about? I asked. Mom and Dad are planning a trip, and I want to give them the travel expenses, he said. Really? Seeing my mood sour, Gordon hurriedly added, Look, Mom and Dad live on their old age pension, right? I owe them a lot, so I want to give them this gift. They're getting older and soon won't be able to travel where they want. It's now or never. I get it, but how much are we talking about? $2,000. $2,000? Where are they planning to travel? We don't have that kind of money to spare. We also want to travel but can't afford the time and money. I know, I understand, but you get how I feel, right? Please, I'm asking you. Fine, $500, but that's it. And I won't be giving them anything in the future, okay? Really? Thank you. Mom will be so happy. I didn't want to give money to in-laws who harass me and don't cherish Angelia, but I understood Gordon's desire to repay his parents. Since Gordon is an only child and I also have no siblings, I empathize with the desire to do something for one's parents. But this was a mistake. Later, I received a call from Anissa. Hey, you only gave $500. Gordon said it would be $2,000. I answered the phone expecting a thank you call from Anissa, but it was the opposite. Not a single word of gratitude. She was in battle mode from the start. I couldn't stay silent. Excuse me, Gordon wanted to repay you, so we gave what we could. How can you say that we can't afford to give $2,000 for travel expenses? How dare you trample on Gordon's goodwill? You're the worst. My family has expenses too. Angelia is still young, and she's starting middle school next year, which will be costly. You understand that, right? Anissa, my child was a boy, so it was worth spending money on him. Angelia is a girl, right? She'll just get married eventually, so it's a waste. That money would be better spent on us. What are you saying? Still talking about girls and boys like this? Unbelievable. I was speechless at Anissa's words. Oh, because of Viola's stinginess, we had to settle for a modest trip despite my good intentions. Not only was there no gratitude, but I was also met with such harsh words. I was boiling with anger. Giving you money was a mistake. Enjoy your modest trip. With that, I hung up. I will never do anything for those people again, I promised myself. Later, presumably back from their trip, Anissa invited Gordon and Angelia to the in-laws' house, deliberately excluding me. I was irritated by her blatant attitude, but I didn't want to see her either, so it suited me fine. More importantly, Angelia's elementary school ceremony event was coming up. It seems parents now wear dresses and children need suits. I was pondering where to buy the dress and suit. After the ceremony event, I had plans to gather at a friend's house with Angelia for a party. I had to think about what to bring as a gift, so I was relieved to have some time to myself. When Gordon and Angelia returned from the in-laws' house, Angelia, usually so lively, silently retreated to her room looking downcast. Hey, Gordon, Angelia seems down. Did something happen? I don't know, nothing special at the family house. That couldn't be true. Angelia's always full of energy, never just going to her room without saying hello. I knocked on her door. Angelia, what's wrong? I asked. Angelia came out and hugged me, crying. Grandma said I was an unwanted child and that I didn't have any desserts. Grandma, Grandpa, and Dad ate lunch, but they didn't give me any. What? That's unbelievable. I was shocked. I never expected Anissa to treat Angelia so cruelly. Just wait a minute, I said, and quickly prepared a meal with what we had at home for Angelia. Eat while talking. It's okay. Angelia tearfully started to eat. Everyone acted like I wasn't there. That's horrible. What about Dad? Dad was just enjoying Grandma's cooking and didn't say anything to me. What? That's unbelievable. Furious, I stormed out of Angelia's room and confronted Gordon with a demonic look. How could you not give Angelia any food or souvenirs? What were you thinking? I exploded at Gordon in anger. But Gordon, more defiant than ever, replied, She was being spoiled, that's why. I can't believe it. Angelia felt invisible to everyone. How can you, Anissa, and Chester treat a child so blatantly? I yelled at Gordon. Quiet. I only did what was necessary, he shot back. How can you say that's necessary? Aren't you ashamed to treat your own child like that? This is why I hate women, always making a scene and crying. We should have had a boy. Mom said so too. Mom again? Whether it's a boy or a girl doesn't matter. Now enough is enough. Don't talk back to me. If you keep this up, I might consider divorce. Remember that. Gordon was authoritarian, perhaps influenced by Anissa. Divorce? You go that far? I felt my fist trembling with anger. You're always saying horrible things to Mom, bullying her. What? It's the other way around. It's them harassing me. This time it was your mom who harassed Angelia. My mom wouldn't do that. Anyway, Mom also said it might be better to consider divorce, and I'm starting to think so too. Mom, okay, I get it. I'll rethink it too, but at least come to Angelia's ceremony event properly. We'll continue this conversation afterwards. Fine, let's talk when we're calm. I'll stay at my parents' place for a while. I'll be back for Angelia's ceremony event. With that, Gordon quickly packed his bags and left. Unexpectedly, I learned how Gordon and Anissa were thinking about the future. Gordon didn't contact me or return home after that. I told Angelia, Dad is going to live with Grandma and them. He said he would come to the ceremony event. I decided to be honest with Angelia, thinking there might be no future with Gordon. Angelia just said, and didn't ask anything more. She seemed to be considering in her own way. A few days later, it was the day of Angelia's ceremony event. Angelia and I got dressed in our suits and dresses, full of spirit. We were looking forward to Angelia's ceremony day. Angelia had already gone to school, and I was alone waiting for Gordon's return. But no matter how long I waited, Gordon didn't show up. We might miss the ceremony event if this continued. Having reached my limit, I called Gordon. Where are you right now? Hearing my angry voice, Gordon said something shocking. Viola, it's been a while. Right now, I'm on a family trip to Australia with Mom and Dad, having a great time. What? Today is Angelia's ceremony event. You said you'd be back. Hey, don't get mad just because you weren't invited to the family trip, Gordon taunted, seemingly drunk and careless. You forgot about Angelia's ceremony event day for an Australian trip? Are you insane? Unbelievable. Ceremony events don't matter. I'm having the best time here and won't be back for 3 weeks. Perhaps influenced by Anissa, Gordon remained defiant. In the background, I heard Anissa's voice. That foolish wife, tell her not to call if she's not family. You should just divorce her. Yeah, I've been thinking about divorce too, so don't call me again. Well, if that's your attitude, I have my own plans too. I hung up. After that, we successfully finished Angelia's ceremony event and had the party at her friend's house as planned. Dad didn't come after all. Sorry, Angelia. It's not your fault, Mom. I'm okay as long as I have you. Don't push yourself, Mom. Her words comforted me, but my heart ached. I silently apologized in my mind. After the party, once Angelia was asleep, I went straight to the convenience store to check the balance of the savings account I had for her. As I feared, just as I thought, the balance was zero. The $30,000 savings were all withdrawn. He used Angelia's savings for his trip with his parents. I was overwhelmed with shock and anger. Tears wouldn't stop. It was money I had saved desperately for Angelia. I would never forgive that family. The next day, I began preparing for my retaliation against Gordon. First, I went to City Hall to gather the necessary documents. I decided to settle everything and return to my parents' home. I had already informed my parents, Reader and Jim, about everything that had happened. That's what happened. You've been so brave. Come back home with Angelia. Let's live together. Seeing Angelia every day, there's nothing happier. Don't struggle alone. Come back anytime, they said kindly. Angelia really bonded with my parents, and when I told her we'd be living with Grandma and Grandpa, she excitedly said, "Yay, I'm so happy," which reassured me. A few days later, Gordon texted, boasting about their luxurious family trip to Australia, taunting that I wasn't part of the family. He asked me to pick him up from the airport in 3 days. I wondered when he had become so arrogant. Maybe it's because he's with Mom. He still takes such a bold attitude. Of course, I ignored such texts without hesitation. I sent all my belongings to my parents' house and arranged for Gordon's belongings to be delivered to the in-laws' house on the day he returned. After clearing out all the belongings from our house, I returned to my parents' home with Angelia. My parents warmly welcomed us back with, "Welcome home. We've been waiting for you." Eventually, the day of Gordon and his family's return arrived. Gordon texted me to come to the airport at 12, saying he had arrived, but I ignored these texts as well. After that, more texts and calls came in, about 30 in total, but I ignored them all. Soon after, Gordon must have arrived at the in-laws' house, as the phone rang again. Ignoring it wouldn't solve anything, so I reluctantly answered. "Why are you ignoring me? I've decided I can't live with you anymore. Let's get divorced." Divorce? What are you talking about all of a sudden? You said it. You wanted a divorce, and your beloved Anissa seems to want it too. While we spoke, I heard a doorbell on Gordon's end. Wait a second. He seemed to go to the door, then came back panting. "What's this about a bunch of luggage arriving at my parents' house?" he asked. He sounded panicked. "That's your stuff. I sent it to arrive when you got back from your trip. Glad it made it. This is too much. Anyway, I'll be there in about an hour. The call ended. An hour later, Gordon called again. What the hell is this? My house is gone. Yes, I said. I don't want to live with you anymore, so I sold the house. It looks nice and clean, doesn't it? Gordon was shocked to find an empty lot where our house once stood. That's impossible. The location was good, so it sold quickly. I sold the land during their trip, intending to sell everything. What about the money from the land sale? Forgot that land was my parents'. Dad bought it for real estate investment before we got married, so the money goes to him. Where are you and Angelia? Hearing Angelia, she grabbed my phone. Dad, I'm with Mom. You didn't come to my ceremony, so I'll never forgive you, she said. Before I could release my frustration, Angelia delivered a blow to Gordon. Sorry, I don't know what to say. Taking back the phone, I said, Angelia and I won't forgive you. You'll hear from my lawyer about the divorce. I expect you to handle child support and property distribution properly. Wait. Oh, and the savings you withdrew? I'll be claiming that too. Let's discuss further with lawyers. I hung up. I left the divorce proceedings to my lawyer, ignoring calls from Anissa. She must think Gordon is not at fault. I instructed my lawyer to demand the $30,000 Gordon used and child support. The in-laws paid it off by liquidating their savings and selling their car, but as an elite family, they should be able to handle that much. Gordon later joined a dating website, bizarrely specifying he wanted a woman who could bear a boy. My friends told me he was ridiculed at parties for his creepy behavior. Embarrassed by my ex-husband's antics, I doubted anyone would take a 40-year-old divorced man with such demands. The divorce was finalized, and I became a single mother. Angelia, now in middle school, made many friends and enjoyed school. With my parents' support, I juggled work, household, and parenting, leading a fulfilling life. Recently, I even met someone interesting at work and considered starting a new chapter in my life.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.